Hey everybody, my name is Lee. I'm the DM of the new D&D podcast show, Behold This Crit, and today I'm going to be taking you through how to make your own custom world map. Now, this can be a very large task to kind of undertake, and because of that, I'm going to be breaking this video up into a couple of different videos. This first one is going to be how to prep for it and how to make the starting basis of your world map. Starting off, I'm going to show you what our end product should look like, so you know what you're getting into before you start watching these videos. And essentially, this is what we're looking at. This is one of my maps that I've created for the D&D livestream show that I'm DMing, and this is pretty much the end product that we're going to be looking for. So I'm going to take you through a couple of different steps that it might not always look like this, but this is what we're going to get through if you do watch the entirety of the video and hopefully the series. Alright, so now that you know what we're getting into, let's just start off. The first place that we're going to go to is a website, and we're going to download a piece of software called Hexographer. If you have started creating maps, or you've at least looked into it, you probably have at least heard the name Hexographer. It is essentially a really powerful tool for creating basic hex maps for D&D. And as soon as I open this up, you should be able to see, this is what we're talking about. You'll see all of these different hexes with different colors and all of the things like that. But we're not really interested in all of these fancy icons or anything like that, because we're going to do that all in the later steps. No, what we're going to use Hexographer for is going to be actually just a base of what we're going to create the map of. So we're pretty much going to make the first layer with Hexographer and then make finer details in Gimp. So now that I've downloaded Hexographer, because I already downloaded it previously, we're going to go ahead and open it up. And we're going to get something that looks like this, and we're just going to pretty much make a basic 80 by 80 map and create it like that. So here we are. I opened up Hexographer, and when I did, it gave me an option to auto-generate a map. Now, I did this for one reason specifically, and that's because it auto-generates all of the land areas for you, where you can see here I have a desert or something like that, next to forest, next to bodies of water, and everything like that, and it gives you a really good basis for what to start with your base world. However, I'm not going to utilize this. I just wanted to show that it is available. I'm actually going to create a base one from scratch, so I'll be right back. And there we go, it's as simple as that. Now, it's obviously not crazy detailed, and that's perfect because that's exactly how I want it. So let's export this and move it on into Gimp. Alright, and now we're in Gimp, which is honestly one of the best pieces of software that I've ever used for picture or photo editing, specifically because it's free. So what we're going to do is we're going to pull in our world map that we just created in Hexographer. But before we do, we want to make sure we make a new file first. And that's because the Hexographer file is not going to be a very large file in terms of resolution. And we want our world map to be pretty big, just so we have a lot of room to work, as well as pretty good resolution to work with. So we're going to go up here and create new, and we're going to choose the file size. Now, whenever you're creating a new map, specifically a world map, it should be probably pretty big. Generally speaking, you don't need to make it this big. You can make it as big as you want. However, I like the 35 to 4500 mark. So I'll just put the 3500 by 3500. And now that is 3500 pixels by 3500 pixels. And you might have noticed that is a square picture. That is because I like to keep it square, so I can really have the room to customize it as it gets bigger and bigger. But now that this has been created, I'm going to drag this right on in here. It's obviously very small comparatively to what we just created. However, what we're going to do is we're going to scale it. And you can either hit Shift S to scale it, or you can hit this button up here. It has a couple of different tools, but you want to either click on it or right click on it and choose scale, and then from there you can simply drag and drop to change the scale of the picture. Now I'm just going to zoom out a little bit, scale this to my picture size, and move it into the entirety of here. It might not fit perfectly, and that's not a huge deal, so we'll just leave it like that. Scale it. And since I upscaled it, the resolution is going to be pretty gnarly, but that's really not that big of a deal because this is really just a basis. So now that we've created our world map in Hexographer, put it into Gimp, we're good to go. We have our new map over here. I'm just going to label this the Hexographer. This is my layers over here on the right hand side. I know you might not be able to see it, but I have my layers over on the right hand side. I labeled this as Hexographer. We're going to go down here into this layers and hit on this plus button, which is the add a new layer. Click on that, and we're going to name this layer. We're just going to make this the outline layer and hit OK. Now that I have the outline layer set, I'm going to go right on over to my paintbrush tool, adjust the size of my paintbrush to be, you know, something along that size, and I'm literally just going to drag and drop. So we're just going to draw around this map. You know, it doesn't matter if you're using a mouse and keyboard or anything like that. Realistically, this is supposed to be rough. And the reason that is because then it really imitates what a landmass looks like, where all of these hexes obviously look landmassy-esque. However, they don't exactly look realistic because they don't have those natural curves and edges like you would on an actual map. So actually doing this by hand on a mouse makes it look that much more realistic. And once we do finish this too, we are going to go a step further and really customize the edging of these in another video. But this is just to kind of give you an understanding of why we do this. So I'm just going to skip ahead right now because this might take a minute. And I suppose I should mention, it's okay to kind of jiggle your hand a little bit. Whenever I find myself tracing over something like this in a hexographer map or something like that, I find I get very rigid and it's hard to move my mouse in a specific way. And if my mouse ever gets stuck, I tend to just like wiggle it like I just did there. And it really helps me kind of get those nice jagged edges that I'm looking for on a landmass. And there we go. We now have our outline. You can even click on this eyeball, and that's what we have for our world map. Okay, so now we have our outlines all set and good to go. Now what we're going to do is we're going to fill them in. So what we're going to do is we're going to take this fuzzy select tool, which is like this little wand with a star on it. If you right click it, it might have this icon, the select by color, but just select the fuzzy select tool because that's what we're using. And we're going to click inside each of these boxes. Now each of these boxes are going to be individually highlighted, so what we're going to do is we're going to hold shift and left click on them so it highlights all of them because we want all of them to work together. Now that we've highlighted all of that, what we're going to do is hit this new layer option in the bottom right hand corner. We're going to make this the outline fill layer. And then we're going to take our bucket fill and drop it in each of these sections. And that will outline or fill in the entire outline. But there is one more step you have to do, which is go into the select and select grow, and then grow it by roughly number between 1 and 10, depending upon the size of your picture. I'm going to choose 10 because my picture has a lot of pixels in it. And we're going to fill those in. And we're going to select none, and we can see it made a nice fill of our land masses. Now, the reason we do the grow is you're going to have to trust me here. I'll show you what would happen if I didn't. You'll see it has this kind of awkward outline, which we don't need because of when it did the fuzzy select, it didn't select near perfect pixels, which is why we kind of cheese it and do the grow here by a certain amount, because then it highlights it, covers that entire outline, and you're good to go. But now that we've done that, we have two different layers here, which we don't really need. So what we're going to do is we're going to take the outline fill layer, right click it, and choose merge down. This will merge the outline fill layer with the outline layer, so then instead of having two layers here, you'll just have one. And there you go, you now have that. And with that done, we can now hide this hexographer map, and there you go, you have your blank black outline for your world map. So now that we got our base layer set and good to go, we're gonna add a little bit of nuance to this map to make it start to look like a map. So the next step is we're gonna go to Google and we're gonna just search for an old used parchment kind of texture here. So let's go to Google and we're gonna go old parchment texture and then just find an image. You can find any of these images that you want to use. I already have one, so I'm just gonna actually move it and drag it right into Gimp. And we see here, this is actually the file that I have. Obviously, it's not very big, so I will have to expand it and scale it. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to do exactly what I did with the other one. Hit Shift S, or go to the scale option here, and drag it till it fits. If you want to go a little bit more in detail, you can even rotate it like this if you want. However, we don't really need to do that, so I will just scale it to be as big as I need it. Perfect, and here we go. Now I have the matte background layer set. I can drag it wherever I want under each layer, and look at that. That is starting to look like a map. Now obviously this layer is supposed to be blue because it's a sea, right? So what we're gonna do is we're gonna select the matte background layer, go to filters, actually we're gonna go to colors, sorry, and we're gonna go to hue and chroma, or hue and saturation, I apologize. and we're going to change the hue of this map until it's a color that we want. Now, since it is the sea, we obviously want it to be blue. That looks pretty blue to me, right? I'm just going to hit OK. And beautiful, we have our nice blue sea here. But I'm actually going to adjust that because I thought that was too blue. It was too blue for this map we're going for, or too green. There we go. That's the nice color we're looking for right there. Okay, now that we've got the outline and the background set up, we're going to go into the edging of each landmass, and we're going to really customize them to make them look natural like you would on an actual map. So what we're going to do is we're going to go to our tools up in the top left-hand corner here, click on our eraser tool, and we're going to get a bunch of our different options. What we're going to need to do is adjust the size to a smaller size. I'm going to put it to maybe 7. And we're going to change the hardness of it. So when you're erasing the edging of a landmass, you need to make sure it is set to hardness 100. You don't want it to be feathered or anything like that, or you can also use the pencil tool. But if you have the hardness set to anything under 100, it's going to create this feathered look, which does smooth out the borders. However, later on in the tutorials, this will cause a problem. So creating this at the 100 level hardness is going to be the way to go. So just make sure when you are erasing, you set it to 100. And then we'll start slowly customizing each of these edgings to make them as nice as we can. And this is kind of where I go back and forth with the jittering hand again, where you kind of get this juts and you really customize this edging of the mass. So now that I showed you how to do that, I'm going to fast forward after I do all of this and show you what my product will look like at the end. Now, one of the tools I'm using to create this kind of stuttering effect is if you go over to the eraser tool over here, you can actually click apply jitter. And what this does is it makes your mouse, your cursor jitter around the screen in a pixel wide variety depending upon what size the jitter is. Right now, because of my resolution, I have it set to 1 pixel roughly, because it's giving me that nice jagged edge that I'm looking for by going through this. However, depending upon what size you have your map set, the jitter may or may not need to set higher or lower. But it's giving me that nice kind of jagged feel that I like on an actual map. So quick tip, just try out the jitter and it will actually make quick work of this section. You might have also noticed that while I'm doing this, I'm not exactly following the outline perfectly. If I do, it's going to create a map. However, it's not going to make it real natural. So I am making kind of these little ruts or jitters up into the actual outline itself to kind of give it a more natural feel. So really, you don't need to be super accurate with this. Just don't feel like you're pressured to be, coloring inside the lines, if you will. And there we go, all finished. All right, now that we got the ocean, we got the black outline of the land masses, we got the really nice coastal seaside, making it look realistic on a map, we're gonna actually add some color to those land masses and our continents. So we're gonna do exactly what we did beforehand with the ocean, and we're gonna drag in our old parchment paper that we had before. Just drag it right in as a new layer, there we go. Except instead of what we did last time, we're gonna rotate it and go to the rotate tool, and we're going to rotate it 180 degrees just to give it a little bit of difference than what we had used for the ocean. Then we're going to scale it up with the Shift S tool, or going to the scale tool in the toolbar. Scale it to the larger picture. It'll scale up in a second. Here we have this. Now this is the part where it might get a little bit confusing, but trust me, if you follow my steps, it will work out. Now what we do is we're going to drag this layer, the map background, under the outline layer, and now you have what we had before we colored the ocean. We're then going to select the outline layer, go back to the fuzzy select tool, but instead of that, hit select by color. And then we're going to select all of the black outlines here. This is going to select all of the continents that you have on your outline section, and then we can add those to the continents itself. So once they've been selected, I'm actually going to shrink it. And I'll explain why I do that in a moment, but if I go to select, shrink, I'm going to shrink it by 8, and it will shrink what I've selected by 8 pixels. This could vary between 1 and 10, depending upon how large your map is. However, 8 works for this map. And then finally, I'm going to go again to the select tool and hit invert. This inverts what you've selected, so instead of selecting all of the black masses on the screen, it will then select everything but what you have. I will then go to my map background that I just imported and hit the delete button. And it looks like I deleted all of my work, but upon closer inspection, if you go to the layers here, you can see that it's kind of outlined what I have here in my outline section. If I drag my map background above my outline section, I now have a nice world map that looks like a landmass here with the right colors and everything. The reason I shrunk it initially when I deleted it is because that shrink allows me to have that nice black outline around all of these continents here. Allowing the outline layer to be a little bit bigger than the actual world layer allows you to have this nice crisp black outline of your entire continent, which makes it really pop and gives it some extra depth when you get into the world making. And that's it for part 1, everybody. So far, we've got an awesome canvas to work with. We've got some really cool ideas and islands and stuff we can work with. But part 2, we're going to be going over mountains, grasslands, ponds, lakes, etc. like that. So if you do want to check that out, be sure to keep checking back at our channel for when we upload that. But aside from that, that's it, everybody. Hopefully you check us out live at twitch.tv/4nerdsbynerds for our weekly D&D livestream show. But if not, I hope to see you in the next video where we will cover a lot more about map making. So thank you all again very much for watching, and I'll see you soon.